Welcome to Cinemapile, where we bring you the best in independent, documentary, and foreign films, and we talk to the people who made them. I'm your host, Mike Caspar, and you can find out more about the program by going to cinemaphilepod.com. Ask E. Jean is a riveting story of E. Jean Carroll's life from her early days as Miss Cheerleader USA to her rise as a trailblazing journalist, author, and beloved advice columnist. E. Jean broke many barriers, first female editor at Esquire and Playboy, and outside helping to redefine women's roles in media and with her sharp wit and fearless voice. Terrific documentary film, award-winning film. It is, and well-deserved. The film is called Ask E. Jean. We're joined today by the director, Ivy Meeropol. Ivy, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I am so glad that this is out. I'm so glad there, again, as I said to you before we got started, there's new information in this that I wasn't aware of, and I think a lot of people will be hearing it for the first time. What was the genesis of this particular project?
You know, I was kind of surprised by my excitement over the initial. I basically just read the article that E. Jean had published in New York Magazine. Well, it was the excerpt from her book. There, she first came out publicly about the assault at Bergdorf's. I read it and I was like, I need to know who this woman is. It was her writing style, the way she told her story, her honesty, the humor that lives side by side with this grim story. All of it really struck me, and I did not know much about her. A friend of mine said, "How can you not know Ask E. Jean?" You know, the column. And I said, I vaguely knew. So, I mean, in some ways, I was a good person to come into this because I didn't have a lot of preconceived notions about her at all. So I did a little digging, and I asked my manager, can you find out if anybody's doing a film about E. Jean Carroll? Because of course that article, landed with a big splash, and then she was on a lot of news programs, and apparently there were other filmmakers pursuing her as well. She had told her agent, her literary agent, not interested. I'd rather eat my shoe. That's her line. Which again, I thought, well, I've heard that before in my career. I'm not afraid to continue to pester people until they say, leave me alone. So I was lucky. I was fortunate enough that she ended up watching my Roy Cohn film, which you mentioned, which we've talked about before on your show. And she really responded to it. She admired it. She was moved by it. And she said she would be willing to meet with me. And that's how it began. But as time went on, of course, I had no way of knowing the story would get so big. And I kept saying when I was trying to pitch it early on or thinking about it myself, that it doesn't matter if she wins. It's the fact that she's pursuing him and pursuing the lawsuit and wasn't going to let him continue defaming her. That was enough of a story and her life story. But then, of course, things got even bigger.
What's so interesting about this is that response to that question, why are you doing this? It's a simple answer. It's a profound answer, and that is,
called me a liar.
Oh, called me a liar. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a powerful thing to say. And you're immediately, for me, I'm immediately drawn to her for that.
Yes.
And I also want to explore the almost cosmic nature of you doing this film, going back to Heir to an Execution, the Roy Cohn film, and you've been in some ways in this concentric circle for a while.
I know, it's so interesting because I couldn't see that myself while it was happening. Meaning, like, of course, I know there's clear connections, Heir to an Execution and the Roy Cohn film. I made the Roy Cohn film because I was so upset that Donald Trump had been elected, and I wanted people to understand who's behind who helped create him. But with the E. Jean film, I thought it was something completely separate. I really was not aware of it, but you're not the first person to kind of point this out. Now I can really appreciate that there is something, cosmic, or what, or is it that I'm drawn to this kind of story, where I believe, I don't know, I'm fired up by by injustice.
There you go. That's the word I was going to use. Exactly.
Yeah, I really, and injustice can take so many forms, and injustice being someone like E. Jean being dismissed as a whack job and a kook and a this and a, someone who's politically motivated by any of this, it makes me want to show what's the truth. I just can't help it. And the way that I clung to this film and in particular against so many hurdles, like, I mean, there were so many times it wasn't happening. We didn't have the money. We were shut out because of the trials, just so many complications. Then how are we going to tell the story of the trials when we don't have any footage of it? And then I got the depositions, which was, again, another thing. I just thought, what an incredible gift. I mean, those would have been just under lock and key for, eternity. Nobody sees those unless they become part of the public, unless they become part of the public record from
Yeah.
being entered into court evidence, or you are given access the way I was by Eugene and Robbie.
Yeah, and again, the fire that burns within Aging Carroll feels like that's what the same kind of fire that drives you, the same kind of motivation. And I didn't know her. I really didn't know. I'd heard of her somehow, some way. I read a lot of New York-based magazines or whatever. I kind of am aware of that. I love New York City. Whenever I've been there, it's just such an amazing place. So I'm
Yeah.
sort of drawn to it. And I
Right.
didn't know about her, but she is about as unfettered a personality that I've seen who isn't in that strata of show business, I'll call it, that it doesn't feel exploitative. She feels
Mm.
genuinely like this is her truth, and she is there every day on set, whatever it is. She seems so genuine to me.
Yes, she is. She can't help but be herself. And it was an interesting, kind of tension, I'm sure, when, going through these trials, because the Trump teams would want to take advantage of anything that she said, and the fact that she's so honest. But to me, that's what's so important about her story. Women are asked to shrink and hide ourselves and not really be as honest about, like, especially when you're describing, when you're trying to bring a claim against someone who's assaulted you, women are expected to be a certain kind of victim.
Yeah.
And Eugene just blows all that out of the water. And it's scary, but it's also incredible to witness and be part of and is inspiring. I think she takes the Me Too movement to like a whole nother level.
There is something also, and I don't think it can be understated, the perception, the specter of violence around Donald Trump.
Mhm.
He carries himself like a mob boss. The people around him act like mobsters in some manner of speaking. The specter of violence is something that I think is one of the ways in which he holds sway over people that who either are around him to support him or who are threatening him. He sees
Yes.
as a threat. And of all the people that I can think of, I mean, there are some of the inner circle that have turned on him. Yes, he's gone after them. But E. Jean Carroll feels particularly vulnerable. And especially given, she's an older woman, all that there's a lot of reasons for her to have just said, you know what, this is enough. I'm done.
Mhm. Yes, you're absolutely right. I think she learned something about herself in this process that she is, when she talks about that she's stubborn, that she's tough, that she never put herself in any position like this, right? And so once she started reckoning with her past and feeling disavowing, some of the advice she gave and how she
Yeah.
viewed what women should be, take care of it yourself and stand up for yourself, I think that had to have contributed to her also deciding now, I can do something right now when I didn't maybe say something before and didn't. I mean, you see on the Ask Jean show that she advises women to do exactly what she didn't do, which is, go to the police, never blame yourself. And even by the end of our film, she's still blaming herself, which is so poignant because it shows how deep this is in our
Mm.
society, how deeply ingrained this is for women. What she does in this film, or what she shows, and just by being, the woman who's taken on Trump and been doing this so public, she just shows how powerful it is to just continue to tell your story and not let the fear push you away. She's an older woman and she's just feeling, like stronger and stronger in a way as she gets older. So you say she's vulnerable, but she feels stronger.
Yeah.
And also being surrounded by, Robbie Kaplan and all the other, incredible women who've come together to support her. And I mean, I have felt stronger and braver. People ask me like, how aren't you nervous? Aren't you? I have felt stronger and braver just being part of their world also.
Absolutely. And the woman, Lisa
Oh yeah, Lisa Burnback, right?
Burnback, near the opening of the film, we see them in a conversation about when she told her what had happened and the reaction. And you kind of gave us an overview of what they walked through in their conversation, like how she's asking her for permission to not tell this story,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And it's fascinating. There's a circle of women in the film that really come to her and say, you have to do this. You have to stand up for yourself. And it just there's girl power. I don't know how to
Yeah.
put it. I mean,
No,
just
it is a sisterhood. I see it
sisterhood.
as,
There you go.
and
Yeah.
it's I love that you are pointing this out because it was really at a certain point while we're making and there's always this it's documentaries like a constant discovery or resetting. Well, that idea actually is not great. I learned this now. We're going in this direction, that kind of thing. And themes start to come. And I really was so excited by this, like women supporting each other and how it's like this it is about female friendship. There's this like kind
That's
of
right.
deep story of female friendship. Robbie and Eugene become deep, have a deep friendship. Feel a friendship. I mean, and that doesn't happen all the time when you're making film with people. But Lisa and Eugene and then Eugene and Carroll, that they both held this story secret also for over 25 years, and then despite the fear and the danger, were willing to come forward and not be anonymous sources
Right.
and be they're called outcry witnesses, which is something else I learned, that they are the people that Eugene told at the moment, and now they testify, and that's everything.
That is everything. It was such an important factor in this decision. And yeah, exactly. I just also want to let people know that the film Ask E. Jean is opening in New York City at the IFC Center on the 22nd of May, and also be opening up here in Los Angeles on May 29th. After that, there will be a nationwide rollout of the film. So be looking forward. There's so many things about this to watch how she and this case unfolds, the things we know about. And but to see him from the inside looking out is really a wonderful perspective on all of this. She's the only one who's really beaten him in court.
I know.
I mean,
It's
it is if you were to put a bunch of names and things that if he's been accused of on a big board, and you'd say which one do you think is going to prevail? I'm not sure you would pick this one.
No, you're exactly right. Especially because the story itself is so outlandish, right? It's so crazy. And so I mean that's why Trump had no gumption. He would just get up and say, "What? I met, we went up into what kind of woman goes up into a dressing room for some hanky panky?" That it's like all of the details of the story are so crazy, but that's why it's so true. And when she lays it out and you understand how this could have happened, how she was this very well known, as Lisa says, she was more famous than him during this time period in
Yeah,
the mid
yeah,
90s in New York City. So he recognized her first. You're the advice lady. Hey,
yeah.
advice lady. That's how it began.
By
Hmm.
the way, I'm going to quickly want to remind our listeners we're speaking with Ivy Meeropol. She is the director of Ask E. Jean. And thank you for bringing back the Access Hollywood tape
Yeah,
because it is a preview of coming attractions and or admitting, and that's the one thing about Trump. He admits his guilt in some other way, and somehow, some way, people refuse to or choose to not believe him when he's telling you the quiet part out loud.
I
He
know.
said what he did in that Access Hollywood tape. That's what he did to E. Jean Carroll.
Yes. It's so shocking. I mean, and that was really important to us to have put that in. I have been so dismayed that many, many young women in particular of voting age don't even know that that exists, that
Wow.
tape. They
Wow.
just don't know because it was 2016. So they missed it. It disappeared. It wasn't, it's like, and so it's a confession of what he does and what he did to Eugene. It's just pure and simple. It's exact like saying grab, grab them, that's what he did. No, I think it's really important reminder that this is a pattern and it keeps cropping up. And your question about, how could there were so many accusers, right? I think 26 others easily
Yeah.
before Eugene even came out with hers, which is another reason why at first this was never going to be, it wasn't a new story, right? That Trump has done this. That wasn't going to be enough. It was that Eugene was going to go all the way. And, there's a lot of luck involved, a lot of privilege and access, which she
Mm.
readily admits. And she got, put together with Robbie Kaplan. Most women who want to pursue their men who assaulted them, especially if they're powerful men, are never going to have this kind of opportunity. And that's a shame. And that's what we want to change. So I think there are factors that made E. Jean the one, not to mention these are New York City, these are juries that come from the New York area and, who are open to hearing this woman's story. But she told the truth and it was a very compelling story. So 9 people on 2 separate juries found unanimously.
And also, and I don't think this is in any way prejudicial, but people had been around Trump. Those people on those juries were familiar with Trump.
Yes, yes.
And so for this behavior, this criminal activity
Mhm.
to be believed, it was easy.
Yeah,
I'm going to inject my own opinion here, but it was
yeah,
easy to believe that that had
right.
happened.
Well, then, and he also, as we show very clearly in the film, and people just go crazy when they see it or just amazed by it, is when he mistook Eugene for Marla Maples. And that is, I mean, that probably the main thing that won the case for them. I mean, we think, but who knows? But it was so clear. I mean, he's saying, not my type, not my type. And then he thinks that Eugene is Marla. And then Robbie Kaplan, the brilliant, is so quick. She follows up with, "Would you say that all 3 of your wives were your type?" He says, "Oh yeah, yeah." He doesn't even get it.
Once again, for our listeners, for people tuning in to Cinemaphile, Roy Cohn, Bully Coward Victim, is the definitive documentary about Donald Trump, in my opinion. This is really the Rosetta Stone of everything you need to know about Donald Trump. And if you had watched it, when did it come out? 2000,
2019.
2019. Oh,
Yeah.
the good old days, 2019. Yeah, just
Well,
watch it.
thank you for saying that. It was like I said, I hadn't intended to revisit my family story at all. Heir to an Execution took a lot out of me, and I have a lot of stories I want to tell. But I was really compelled to do that film also. And when he was first elected, I just felt people need to know
Yeah.
I mean, and Cohn had a direct hand in it.
It really tells you everything you need to know about him. I mean, there honestly, I really, yes, I tell anybody who, I don't know, anybody at this point that struggles to understand Donald Trump, but at the same time, if you really want to know how deeply embedded this mentality and this behavior and this sense of privilege and all of the rest of it and this criminality,
Yeah.
watch that film.
And as you said, the use of fear
Use of fear.
as a danger and to suppress and it's really had an impact. I mean, just
Yeah.
so widely when you think about.
Yeah. His mentor is a mob attorney. He's a mobster attorney.
Yeah,
Thank you for agreeing to come back to talk to me because
of course.
I love your work. I love the approach you took, especially with what we just said, Roy Cohn, Bully, Coward, Victim, and other films that you've made. In this one, it's for certain, Ask E. Jean is a beautifully done film. I'm so hopeful that she continues to pursue, which, by the way, spoiler alert, still hasn't seen a nickel of this settlement.
Oh.
I swear to God, please grant me this wish that she gets 88 million plus
Be
interest on all of this
be
stuff.
incredible, I know.
I know.
Well, the Supreme Court it's in the Supreme Court's hands now.
Is it really? Oh, that's
Yeah,
distressing. That's
he has
distressing.
appealed both cases, and the first one is kind of waiting at the Supreme Court for them to decide
Oh,
whether they'll even hear it.
that's
The
not good.
second one is about to go because he just lost his last appeal.
Okay. Well, You did everything you could. E. Jean Carroll's done everything she can. It's in the hands of a highly partisan court
Mm.
who've bent their knee for him before, and I'm sorry to say I don't know why they wouldn't again, but I hope they do the right thing. Like you've done, and so has E. Jean Carroll. You've done what you can, and I'm tired of these moral victories, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I know.
I'm really
Right. You
tired.
have to yeah, I understand.
My moral psyche is enriched, but I really want to see real
Yeah,
money
well, I
exchanging.
know. And you want to inflict real pain.
Yes, what matters most
That's
to
what I,
him. What matters
that's
most
right.
to him is money.
And E. Jean says it so well in the film when she reminds us that he didn't bother to show up for the first trial, which was about the sexual assault.
Yeah,
Didn't even have present any, I mean, like one witness, like it was so, it was just, and then of course he shows up for the second one because it's about money.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you for E. Jean Carroll, Ivy Meeropol. Thank you so much. Anytime, please feel free to ring me up and come back on the program. And it's a wonderful documentary film, really well done documentary film. Continue your great work, Ivy. Thank
Thank
you.
you. I appreciate it so much. And maybe see you in LA. I'll be doing Q&As in Los Angeles.
Do you know that?
Well, we're going to be at the New Art
Oh, are you
first.
in the New Art? Okay, cool.
Yes, I'm very
Oh,
excited about that.
okay. So
Starting
that'll
on,
be on the 29th.
yes,
That'll
I'll
be.
be there 29th, 30th, 31st, I think, Q&As, New Art.
Thank you very, very much, Ivy. It's always a pleasure.
It's great to see you too. Thank you.
You have been listening to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar, the place where you will hear from the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers. Please check out our previous interviews as well as upcoming interviews and special programming by going to cinemaphilepod.com. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, searchable under Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar. Until next time, thank you for listening.